So Russian football clubs and the national team have been suspended from all competitions by FIFA and UEFA after the country's invasion of Ukraine. The world and European footballing governing bodies said they would be banned until further notice. Now, in isolation, I agree with the decision. I think it's the right thing to do. However, the level of hypocrisy is actually disgraceful. It's an absolute outrage. I'll give you an anecdote. I'll give you an example. In 2003, Britain and its partners invaded Iraq. It then flattened Iraq, bringing ISIS into the world due to the conditions that they'd made. 3 months after the UK invaded Iraq in 2003, the Champions League final was held in Manchester between Juve and AC Milan. Right? English clubs continued to compete, in UEFA competitions. The English national team and Scotland and all the other, members of the army all continued in FIFA and UEFA. So, in isolation, I don't believe in war generally. Pacifist, to be honest with you, but it's absolute nonsense. Like, it is absolute nonsense. Like, the level of racism against Russians and also the Chinese to an extent. It's been going on for a long time. The level of racism against the Chinese and the Russians is off the chart. It's just absolute Russophobia. And okay, you don't like Putin. He shouldn't have invaded. It's a dictatorship. They're all true. However, the actual treatment of Russia and the Russian sort of sporting organizations will simply play in to Putin's narrative, because he can easily say, look, NATO, they flattened Yugoslavia. Nothing happened to them. They bombed schools, they bombed bridges, they bombed electrical power generation plants, they bombed water plants, they bombed civilians, they backed the Kosovan Liberation Army, who carried out the most human rights abuses, more than the supposed enemy of NATO. They then went to Iraq, they flattened Iraq. Afghanistan, invaded Afghanistan. They created a no-fly zone over Libya, and they essentially bombed Gaddafi and allowed the rebels to dismember him on camera in public. Okay? Now, you may not like all these regimes, and that's fine. I'm not a fan of dictatorship, but the level of hypocrisy is garbage. And people need to remember one thing, that there is a narrative here in relation to security. And if you want to analyze any situation, you need to invert it. And by that I mean, you need to let's say you do something to somebody. How would you feel if it happened to you? That's the best way of analyzing anything. And in this scenario, you have to ask yourself, what would happen if Russia had a military base or had its army in Ireland? Okay, or in northern France, or if China had a military base in Mexico or Canada or the Caribbean. Well, we know what happened in the Caribbean when the Cubans had their missiles there. It almost created a nuclear war. Okay, so they are spheres of influence of those countries, and they wouldn't want to have an enemy force on the border, and Russia don't want NATO on its border. It's a simple fact. Whether you think that's right or not, that's a fact. And Russia have been trying to discuss this issue for year upon year, and NATO won't. So they're my views. Controversial, no doubt, but don't be a fucking hypocrite in your life. Be balanced. Be for the people of the world. But do not slip in to the absolute guff that's coming out by the media. Because at the end of the day, what did NATO do to Afghanistan? We heard all this shite about Afghanistan, oh, the women, let's save them. What did they do? They just walked away. The Taliban are there, it's not reported. What do you think the Taliban are doing to women in Afghanistan? The West don't give a shit about people. They give a shit about self-interest. And at this moment, it's in their interest to be with the Ukrainians. If the Russians and NATO make a deal privately, then the Ukrainians are going to be left. So anyway, I just think it's hypocritical that Russian teams have been banned. If they're going to ban the Russians, then the World Cup shouldn't be in Qatar. The Saudis, who have flattened Yemen, shouldn't be able to compete in any sporting event. Britain in 2003 should have been banned from all competitions, but they weren't. So you're simply helping Putin because he'll say, look, it's not difficult to explain. Look, we're being persecuted again. So there you go. A polarized world is a bad world, but you've got to be honest and balanced about things. If anyone disagrees with me, please comment, because I'll answer you in the comments, because this is something I feel passionately about. Just to be clear, in no way do I think that any country should invade another country. No, I don't even believe in nuclear weapons. I don't really believe in armies. That might sound like hippie shit to you, but it's true. But in the context of those things happening, you've got to be balanced. Right? Don't believe everything that you read. Anyway, please disagree with me in the comments. I'm fine to have a debate. Thanks for watching if you've watched all the video. Cheers.